Welcome to Best Wellness Interviews, where I interview successful people and they share their experiences and their strategies around health and well-being. I'm Kristine Best. I'm a wellness strategist and I am your host today. My guest today is all the way from the US because I'm in Australia. So it's a long way across the water there. And her name is Pamela Johnson, and she's from Coweta County in Georgia, which is not too far from Atlanta. Am I right, Pamela?
Absolutely. Yes. We're about
Welcome to
45
my,
minutes south of Atlanta.
okay, well, welcome to my show. And I would like it if you would introduce yourself, who you are, what you do.
Thanks, Christine. Yes, I am a veterinarian. I'm Dr. Pam Johnson, and I've been in this profession for over 30 years now, which is hard to imagine. It's actually my second career. My first degree was in mass communications, believe it or not, but I finally found my home in veterinary medicine. I went back to school and never really looked back, and here I am. I guess semi-retired. I sold my practice in 2020, and now I have an online education platform for veterinarians and pet owners, as well as potentially business owners. But it's been a fun journey, been a fun transition, but certainly comes with challenges. But I'm thrilled to be here speaking with you and love your country. I think I mentioned earlier that I visited Australia once and can't wait to go back again.
Yeah, it is a very nice country here. And it is such a wide variety of environments to enjoy. And but if you come to Australia again, you've got to look me up. I'll take you around, show you the sights around the central coast of New South Wales.
Be careful what you say because I am a person that will take you up on that.
That's fine. I don't say
Okay.
things lightly. You're welcome to look me up when you come here.
Okay.
So you just mentioned that you studied maths and you were involved in maths.
So I studied mass communications back in the early 80s, and at the same time, I I thought that I wanted to be a veterinarian, but I didn't have the confidence at the time to, I didn't think I could make it through the sciences and the rigorous training of veterinary medicine. And so I switched my major to mass communications, which was at the time I was really focused on sports and the sports industry, those types of things, marketing and that kind of stuff. And it's interesting that now I'm in a way back in that space a little bit. So it's almost full circle. So I laugh at myself sometimes when I think about how I started, and here I am again learning more about mass communications on a much different level than it was back then, of course.
Well, that's it. That's interesting. You've sort of come full circle back to maths communication. But
It
what
is
but what
irony.
actually, yeah, it is irony. But what actually got you to take the step to study veterinary science? Well, there must have been something that pushed you.
It is my first passion. It's always been there. I even as a young child, veterinary medicine was something that I always thought I would do. I've always been connected to nature, to animals, and then to be able to combine that along with the human animal bond has truly been one of the greatest blessings in my life. And I everything happens for a reason, right? And so, I think that I've been blessed with my career because I started out as a veterinarian, in this space, and then I became a business owner, a leader, and a developer of people, and it's just been been an interesting transition, to watch other people succeed and and then to be able to build a culture where it's a culture of growth, right? A culture of empowerment. And now
Yes.
I'm doing the same thing, but in a little different space.
Yeah, yeah. So you've niched out a bit more, but you're utilizing all the skills that you've learnt during those previous parts of your life. You can pull it all together and utilize that. So
Yes,
what,
it's all kind of led me to where I am today. I think that everything builds on itself, and as long as we have a growth mindset and never stop learning,
well, that's
there's
true.
always opportunities.
Absolutely. And you said you built a business and you must have had that business for a while because you built it to a point where you could sell it. How long did you have that business?
About 25 years. Yes, it was a long time, and I when I look back on how blessed I was, it's unusual for a veterinarian to graduate. You do your undergrad and then you do your grad, you become get your doctorate, and then you look for a job, right? And it's unusual for veterinarians to be blessed to stay in the same location that they started in. And I, I was hired as a veterinarian, as an associate, and in less than 3 years, I became a partner, and then ultimately became the sole owner of the business. And it was truly a wonderful, wonderful career that even with the ups and downs of owning a small business, which of course, as you well know, there are many of them, and those
Yes.
challenges, they make you better, they make you stronger, and make you a better leader in many ways.
Yeah.
So to be able to take all of that information and to take what I hope is wisdom into this next phase of life has been, again, challenging, but also very rewarding at the same time.
Yeah. So when you had that business, you would have had an emotional connection with animals that you're treating, but also with the people who own those animals because people love their pets, right? And so that's the side that is very human and very caring. Tell me a little bit about what that was like then and how you might use that now.
Christine, that's a beautiful segue, because one of the things that I used to tell, and I still do in many ways, I used to tell my clients that I think of your pets as part mine. And when one of the greatest surprises that I got was the connections that I developed with the people, right? You go into this industry sometimes for the wrong reasons. And many people go into veterinary medicine because they're a little bit introverted, and they relate better to animals than they do to people. But
Mm,
I was blessed in that I was honored by not just the pets, but the people connected to those leashes, right? And those relationships were what shaped me. They certainly shaped me. And what I recall is that around 10 or 12 years in, I started having this feeling of what I couldn't describe, was just feeling a little blue, or I don't use the word depressed, but something had changed, and I couldn't put my finger on it. Well, I finally did. And it was that I had watched these pets go from puppies and kittens all the way through life. And then I had to help them transition, um,
okay.
you know, to the next, to the Rainbow Bridge. And I had to help the pet owners get through that. And once I could acknowledge that and I understood it, I was fine. but
Yeah,
it gave me a perspective that, let's say, was a gift I'll never forget.
yeah, I can imagine the emotion of people bringing their pet in and there's no hope for that animal and you've got to euthanize it. I mean, that's probably the most humane way to help that animal end its life rather than be in pain. So yeah, because people don't want to see their animals suffering, you know.
Yes, and that's one of the most important, to me it is actually the most important thing that we do is coach people through everything from anticipatory grief to understanding quality of life. You know, after 30 years in this profession, people think it's about medicine and it's about pet care, but it's really about relationships.
Sure.
And it's how do we help each other through presence, through trust, through loyalty, through loving relationships. That's really what it's all about.
Yeah, very nice. And so tell me how that's the segue into what you do
Because
now.
so now, fast forward, what we're trying to create with Pet Lovers United is that same feeling. And but instead of focusing on the urgent, we try to focus on prevention. We try to focus on longevity and that human animal bond and the strength and the power of that human animal bond that a lot of people sometimes take for granted. It's there, right? But
Yes,
we need to do a better job of defining that.
because because of where I live, I see a lot of people walking their dogs along the esplanade. And you can see the people who've had their dogs trained and have a good connection with their dog. And then there's these other people and the dog rules the roost. You know what I mean? And it's quite interesting to see the dynamics of that relationship. Um, and it's really good when the animal knows, I guess a dog has to know its place because you know, otherwise you're running around after it rather than having a really good relationship with it. Do you want to talk about that kind of stuff?
Yeah, so I do because I think it is critical that people understand the role that we play in their lives. We all want the same thing. We want connection, we want loyalty, we want community, we want family, we want purpose. We need order in our pets. It's think of that times 10. It's exponential. They really need that leadership. They
Mhm.
need that sense of order. They need to know that they're human on the other end of that leash, is going to provide that leadership. And
Yeah,
we have a responsibility just like they do. Owning having a pet is so much more than just going and buying them food and getting a leash, right?
absolutely. I agree with that. And I mean, if you've got a dog, say, especially a big dog, you can't have it running around jumping on old people or children and knocking them over because they could be injured. And so you have to have an animal that's going to respond to your commands and respond to your leadership, as you say. So, but that improves the relationship between the animal and you. There becomes a respect between the two, and a dog in particular has unconditional love anyway. So they're still going to love you whether you're the leader or you let them rule the roost, right? There's going to be that bond anyway, but it's
There
better.
is, but it's so much stronger and it's so much better. And again, it's like anything in life. It's how well do we communicate with each other? There's an immediate reflection of how of whether that relationship thrives or not, whether we're talking about an animal or whether we're talking about a person. We have to be able to provide that consistency. You have to be present in the present moment. I've
Well,
learned
it's
more
also
about,
stability, isn't it? It's also
oh,
stability.
I've learned more about leadership and relationships from animals than any leadership course that I've ever taken. And that's it's serious. If you look out in nature and look at herds of horses, or look at, just recently I mentioned we were in Africa, look at the great apes. So we were blessed to see the silverbacks, and there's a sense of order. There's a sense of
Well,
belonging.
if you
There's a
look at
sense of
wolves,
hierarchy.
if you look at
And
wolves,
it's
they have
same
a
thing
very strict order in their pack, don't they? They have a very strict order.
because their survival depends on it.
That's right. And so dogs are descended from them, aren't they?
Yes. Yes,
So dogs have that, they have that need for structure
they definitely
and
do.
order. Mm.
And it helps us with our ability to adapt. It helps us deal with anxiety in a better way. It helps us with a feeling of what I would call true acceptance. And, I think that again, we can learn so much from looking at nature and looking at the way Mother Nature um, works when it comes to how we take care of ourselves and our pets. I mean, you know,
So
it's hard to deny.
it's interesting that you're talking about it this way because I'm sure a lot of people they buy a pet and the pet is just a companion, but they don't actually what's the word? They don't really establish any authority with the pet, or they don't add that structure and order, and the animal just assumes control. You know what I mean? And the owner's running around after the animal. And that's not the best relationship. It kind of reflects the person's how they are with themselves.
Yeah, our pets tend to, one of the things I speak about a lot is our pets tend to reflect our our internal what I would call our internal being. And
Yes,
so
I
if
agree.
I was just talking, literally, we just had our Independence Day celebration here last weekend, and it is one of the worst days of the year for pets because they get lost, they get out because of anxiety, fear, noise phobias, and things like that. And
Yep.
one of the things that actually can make that significantly more exaggerated is us as pet owners. If we show anxiety, if we show
They
stress,
feel it.
they feel that, and it just
Yeah.
all it does is amp that up. And so it's same with thunderstorms and any other, what I would say, non-routine sort of environments that we sometimes find our pets in. And so it's really critical that we understand when you get a pet, there's a responsibility that goes with that. And one of the things I coach people on is, should you get a pet? When should you get a pet? What is the best pet for your lifestyle, your situation,
Yep.
your family situation, things like that? And I jokingly say, if you live in an apartment in, let's just say, Manhattan or Sydney, you probably shouldn't go get a Belgian Malinois, pet, because they need so much more than perhaps you are able to give them at that point in your life, right?
Mm, mm.
So you want to match the appropriate pet for your lifestyle and be prepared for,
Yeah.
you're talking about a commitment of around, anywhere from 10 to 15, 17 years if you're lucky.
Yeah, and a long-haired dog or a short-haired dog, there's quite a lot of difference in the amount of work that you have to put into to care for those animals.
Yes.
So people don't always think of. the maintenance and the input of the care side of it, and then also the cost, I guess.
Yes, I generally tell people if you don't have the ability to spend $5,000 to $7,000 a year on not just the expected but the unexpected, then you're probably not in a situation where you should necessarily at this point get a pet. But wait until you can financially prepare properly for that. So that's
To care
thank you for
for
bringing
it.
that up.
Yeah,
Yes, yes.
yeah. So tell me the exact focus of what you're doing now.
We are, in essence, bridging the gap between the veterinary community and the pet owners. Very often and I think it's similar where you are, the veterinarians have limited time in the exam room to educate and inform the
Right.
pet owner. And so what we're doing is providing, I jokingly say, what are the things, Kristine, that I wish you knew as a pet owner before you ever walked into my door? And how much better that relationship would be, how much more collaborative would it be? And and in essence, we could potentially add years to our pets' lives if people really understood all the things there is to know about healthcare, about longevity,
Mhm.
recognizing pain, recognizing early disease in our pets. So we're focused on the in between those veterinary visits and what can we do to increase what I always say, lengthen and strengthen the human animal bond. That's truly what we're trying to do. And also, I want to take the opportunity to talk about burnout in our profession. That, 3 to 5 years, many of the people in this profession leave it after
Really?
spending 200, 200 to $300,000 on their education and 10 to 12 plus years of higher education and then leave
Yeah.
it because
Wow.
they're not able to handle the stress of the work environment, and the suicide rate is the highest of any profession in the
Is that
world.
right? Wow.
Yeah, yeah. So
Yeah.
we're really trying to focus on how do we address that.
So is that the pressure of the amount of work that they do, or is it the pressure of having to euthanize animals or seeing the state that animals come in, does that distress them? Is that the reason? Do you think
I,
are there
I
reasons why they don't last in the profession and they want to commit suicide? That's a pretty heavy thing.
Isn't it? It's hard to imagine
Mm.
looking at it from my perspective because I still to this day think it's the best profession in the world. But to answer your question, I think it's a combination of things. I think that again, it it tends to bring people into a profession that are don't necessarily understand how to deal with the everyday stresses of doing what we do, but also we have to realize that this is a people business. The people are connected to pets, but it's a people business, and we have to be able to have critical conversations, crucial, difficult
Right.
conversations on a
Yeah.
day-to-day basis. And so
Yeah.
I think communication skills are a part of that as well. It's this. I've only just met you, but if you love what you do, you're not, it sounds trite, but you're really not working because you're passionate about what you do.
Well, you enjoy it.
And yes, and I was blessed that no matter what kind of day I might have had, the next day I couldn't wait to go into work because I loved what I did. And so
Yeah.
for me, burnout and work-life balance, I'm not a fan of that phrase, but I think that was never a question for me. It was, and so I
But you
think that
did, but you did say that you went through a stage where you were feeling something's not right. Something's bringing me down, and you put your finger on it. And it was the fact that you had to have these conversations with owners and put animals down. And that whole scenario weighed heavily on you, right? And I guess that would be the same for these other people. And some people don't cope with that kind of stuff too well. You obviously cope with it, but you thought critically and you worked it out and you worked a way to handle it. So I think some people are very sensitive, might not cope so well.
That is true. And they don't necessarily, the workload, can be heavy,
Right.
right? I think it's a combination of things. For me, the greatest gift that I could ever give to a pet and to a pet owner is to help them through that end of life and help end suffering. So it was a gift that I always felt like I was able to give to that to the pet and the pet owner in letting them know that it's okay, that ending suffering is okay. And so that for me, once I recognized, oh, I was grieving the loss. And once I could recognize that, it's, we have to be curious, right? And self-reflective. And once you identify those things, I think it makes it easier for you to then handle it and work through those kinds of things. And once I did that, you're always sad when you have to say goodbye.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
it's not something that I would ever trade in a million years. I just I it is and has been an incredible profession.
Yeah, I can see how it would be very rewarding. Did you ever get into the training side of those animals?
It's funny you asked that. I used to love to do, particularly, I mean, I love all animals, but I really, really was focused on natural horsemanship and training naturally. And that again was one of the greatest leadership lessons of all time because a horse
Oh, they're
knows
beautiful.
it's a very spiritual animal and they know
Yeah.
they know your mood 100 yards away. And if you're not prepared, if you're not in that space, if you're not in that present moment,
The horse will
then
be uneasy.
the horse knows it, right?
Yes,
And
I
so
know.
I use that in my practice. When I'd walk into the door, I had to be present. I
Yeah.
had to be present for my team. I had to be prepared. And I did some dog training as well. But it's been probably, gosh, 25, 30 years ago when I did a lot of that. And so you start losing time, right, to do some of those things.
Yeah.
But it's a very, very rewarding when you have that kind of a connection with another species, whatever it is, when you develop that connection and you're really communicating clearly with one another. I love old dogs and old cats because you know each other so well at that point, right? And
Right.
so there's something special about that connection.
Animals also know so well whether you like them or not, or whether you're afraid of them or not. They know that you're a dog lover or a horse lover or whatever. They can tell.
They absolutely can tell. And some some care more than others, right, about that. And so that's also interesting when people are afraid. We used to have I had some rescue horses that we would use to help people get over their fear of horses. And that, including my husband. So,
Oh,
it's,
really?
oh, definitely, definitely. And, he ended up having these wonderful relationship with our horses. And so, he's a true testament to getting over anxiety of being around such a force, right? Because they're very
They're
large.
big. They're big. Yeah, that's right. They are a bit intimidating to some people, I suppose. But
But they
I
all
was
want they all want the same thing. We all really want and crave the same things. And so once we recognize there are more similarities than there are differences.
I absolutely love horses. They're my favorite, but dogs too. I like all animals, a bit like you, but I never wanted to be a veterinary surgeon.
Well, there's so many different aspects to what we do, and that's what kept it so fascinating. It changed all the time. The science
Yeah,
is changing all the time, so for me, I just found it incredibly stimulating and still do, and love the
yeah, yeah.
people.
Oh, yeah. There are some things that I didn't think about until we just spoke about them, but they make total sense. Um, it is very interesting. There are very many aspects, but you've niched off into your area now. Do you actually go to um, the other like veterinary surgeries or clinics or businesses and say, this is what we offer? Can we run courses or something like that? How do you actually operate?
We actually do some business consulting and leadership coaching as well. But we also, what we're developing right now are actually our training webinar videos where
Yeah,
we're doing both pre-recorded and live, where we pick a topic. And, let's right now we might focus on, let's say, recognizing early pain recognition in our pets.
yeah,
And so what we're doing is teaching people how they communicate, because a lot of people think that pets don't feel pain the way we do, and they do. They just don't reflect it the way that we do. They generally don't vocalize. So we have to learn, how do they show pain? Because a dog shows pain differently than a cat shows pain differently than a horse shows pain, but they do feel pain, and very often they suffer in silence. And so that's one topic out of many, many, many that we're putting out there in terms of how do we not just detect it, but how do we slow it down? And how do we improve that, the pain cycle? How do we maintain muscle mass later in years? So it's we through our membership, we actually have many recorded videos. We have a library of videos and PDFs on teaching people even how to communicate better with their veterinarian on certain topics. What questions should you ask in this situation?
mm.
And what should your expectations be?
So you're actually you're working with the veterinarians, but you're also working with individuals to help them um, to empower them, really.
Yes, we actually say that we inform, empower, and educate to bridge that gap between the veterinary community and the pet owner. There's three
Yeah,
ends to the leash, right? You have the veterinarian, and then you have the pet, and then you have the pet owner. And
yeah,
we have to address all three.
right. That makes total sense. And because people don't always know what questions to ask. It's like it's people don't even know what to ask when they go to the doctor for themselves. So they got no idea with their pet either. And so it's really good that you're providing them uh, that education, that understanding and an awareness that they have a right to know what to ask and that they should ask the veterinarian. What does this mean? What are you going to do? What are the options? They need to know that they can ask that because then you're more empowered to make a better decision for your pet.
I'm glad you said that, because it is so critical that we're advocates for not only our pets, but we're advocates for our own health care and our own well-being.
It's exactly
And
right.
people don't necessarily understand that with their own well-being and their own health care. And so that's
Yeah,
actually one of the topics that we holistically discuss, is that you can't be an advocate for your pet if you're not an advocate for yourself and your own health care.
yeah. definitely. And if people don't know how to care for their pet, how to have that relationship with their pet, that is affecting their well-being. Uh, their because a lot of people can't go on holidays because their pet won't um, stay with anyone else, or because they've never really socialized it enough, that sort of thing. So they're a prisoner to their pet. Um, Things like that people don't really think about. And
That
it
is
costs
so
a lot of
true.
money to house your pet, doesn't it, when you go away?
It does, it does. And if they're not comfortable in that setting or that environment, then the anxiety and the stress level just goes up. And it's one of those situations that again, we it's what happens before the what happens that we talk about. And that socialization window, if you miss it, it's not that you can't overcome and still have a positive effect. But very often, one of the things we coach people on is make sure that you understand there is a socialization window and there's some
It's
really crucial things that need to happen.
and it's better to do that early rather than later.
Oh, yes. Yes, hands down. Hands down.
Makes
You
it
know,
easier.
it's yes, and it's the same again, it's similar with humans, but the window in our pets closes much sooner than it does with
With
with our
humans. Yeah.
human counterpart, right?
Yes. Yeah. Wow, that was a very interesting conversation, and I think you're doing great work because people with their pets they're so close. They become part of a member of the family, right? A pet it becomes part of the family. And there are some people who'd be lonely if it wasn't for their pet. They have the pet as a companion. And so that relationship is very important. And if you can help people nurture that relationship, they can have a better one. And that helps their mental health and their quality of their life, and the same for the pet.
That human animal bond is in and of itself is preventative medicine because it
Mm,
it helps reduce loneliness. It gives us better routines. I mean, how many people out there went out and got a walk today because their dog needed to go out, right, to get a
that's right.
walk?
And they wouldn't
Gives
have
us
done that if it wasn't for the dog, right?
right. It gives us that purpose, and that I think there's something to it's that needs to be said that our pets provide, that they give to us something that humans just can't. And it's not taking away from our human relationships, but it's different and it's unique, and we really should learn how to celebrate that in a
Yeah.
healthy
Well,
way.
pets give something special additional to what human relationships can give you. Yeah.
Yes. Yeah, and it's they I have so many stories, Kristine, where pets help people get through very, very difficult times in their lives,
Sure.
and it's irrefutable, what they can do for us given the opportunity. We just have to make sure we're giving back.
Yeah. And it's like I saw something, I think it was on LinkedIn, and it was a man who was in hospital, and they like I think he was probably terminal, and he was stressing out and missing his dog. So they allowed the dog to come in and see, and the dog had obviously been stressing out because it couldn't see the owner. So there they were. They could actually reconnect. And I think that is so important that people go through things and suddenly their pet's not there. Well, that makes it even more grievous.
It does. I think that one of the things that I used to tell my clients, if they had a family member that was going through an illness, whether it be cancer or some other physical ailment, whether or not they should get rid of the pet. And I would say absolutely not, because we know that pets provide something that we cannot provide. They actually help people get through their illnesses in a much better
Sure.
way. They
Yeah.
help healing. It's proven that they can help us heal quicker when they are in our lives. And so I think it's just we have to be smart about it. But I
Yeah.
would never, ever recommend somebody getting rid of a pet simply because of an illness.
No, I think that's wise advice. Um, oh, I was going to say something. Oh, yeah. Uh, there are statistics that show that people live more happily and longer when they have pets.
It is proven.
That
It
is
is
proven.
proven.
Yeah.
They definitely add, and they for children, they teach responsibility, they teach empathy,
Yeah. Yeah.
compassion. They teach children how to deal with death. And it's a very, very critical lesson, I think, that we understand that death, death is something that we shouldn't run from, we shouldn't hide from, we shouldn't pretend it doesn't happen.
No, we
I
should celebrate it. It is celebrate the life that we had time to spend with, right?
Yes.
Um,
Yes.
in Western society, we look at death as, oh, it's a terrible, it's loss, loss, loss. But what did you gain when you had that life there? And and don't you remember the fun times you had? But people want to focus on the loss, and that's wrong to do that. For pets or for people. Sure, you miss them and there's a bit of sadness, but you don't focus on it. You celebrate the joy of that relationship and that life.
One of the things that I used to tell my clients who were facing making a euthanasia decision about their pets, they were saying, I just don't think I could ever do this again. It's just too painful. And I would say, you're getting ready to make a big decision and it is very sad. But would you trade that sadness for all the joy and for all the gifts and for all the years, for all the laughter that you got from your pet because you're going to be sad about the loss? And 9 times out of 10, the answer was no, I wouldn't trade it for anything. And, I have a 91-year-old father who, has beaten the odds several times. And I know that, time is limited, but we just are grateful for every day that we have.
Yeah,
And I think that that's goes back to what we learned from our pets. They live in the moment and they do it naturally. We
yeah.
work for years and years on how to live in the moment and still never quite get it right.
I love how dogs uh, could, you could walk out of the room for 10 or 15 minutes and walk back in, and they're super glad to see you. And you could be away for a week and they're super glad to see you, and they're always super glad to see you.
Yes.
It
There's
doesn't
a
matter how long you've disappeared for.
there's a there's a an anonymous prayer that says, "Dear Lord, please help me be the person my dog thinks I am." And I love that.
Very nice. All right, that's fantastic. It's been a really interesting interview, Pamela. So, would you like to sum up with some gem of wisdom or something that you'd like to share with our viewers and listeners? Something that poignant that you could leave with them.
Don't don't underestimate the power of the human animal bond, and be open to the joy and the gifts that they give to us, but also accept that responsibility very, very seriously and do your best to understand what their needs are. They naturally know what our needs are, but we have to work a little bit harder to understand what their needs are.
That's probably a very good thought to leave with your viewers, because that's not what people would naturally be thinking about when they want
No,
to buy a pet.
no. That's why so many end up in places that we don't want to talk about,
Yeah. Yeah,
right?
it's sad when they're no longer
Yeah.
wanted, or yeah. Thank you very much, Pamela. That was an awesome, interesting interview. Thank you for being
Well,
on my
thank you.
podcast.
Thank you, Kristine. It's been a real pleasure, and I've loved the conversation. I love the sharing. So, thank
Thank
you.
you. Would you like to say how people can get in touch with you?
Sure, sure. You can check out our website. It's petloversunited.com. It's petlovers-united.com or petloversunited.com without the dash. And we're on social media. I'm on Instagram, Pet Lovers United, and Facebook, again, Pet Lovers United. So,
Okay.
and we just started a YouTube channel that is again Pet Lovers United as well. So check us out, like us, follow us. We have a free newsletter that comes out every week, and where we try to share pearls of wisdom and help people take better care of their pets. So just check us out. We're having fun, and we're enjoying this new world that we're in this digital space. And so we're here to make a difference. We want to make a difference.
Awesome. And that can apply to any country around the world, really. It's the same rules for the animals, right?
It absolutely is. No matter where you are, I love to travel, and no matter where we go, the feelings are similar, and the problems are the same, the challenges are the same,
Hmm.
whether you're in the United States, Australia, or Africa. And so we we want this to be a worldwide platform.
Well, I'm sure it will be. And I don't know anyone else who's doing this kind of work. It's pretty special, I think. And I
Well,
wish you all
thank
the
you.
best in your business.
Well, thank you, Kristine. Yeah, and you as well. This has been a joy, really.
Thank you very much. And thank you, viewers, for listening to this podcast. Hope you've enjoyed it. And just wait for the next episode where we have a new guest. Thank you very much, Pamela, for being on my show.
Thank you.